Hello, all. This is the start to the mini lesson on analyzing an essay. This will cover rhetorical and non-rhetorical analysis. So, quick review of rhetorical analysis. Rhetorical analysis covers logic, credibility, and emotional field. So, logic is all about the reasons given and whether or not the reasons match the argument or the position that is stated. So, think of it as you're having a discussion with a friend and they want to go somewhere and you ask them why. The answer to the why are the reasons. So a lot of people conflate facts and statistics with logic, but statistics, pardon me, are credibility. So logic is more of why they believe their stance is right. So using facts and statistics in research goes into their credibility. So credibility is where they build their trustworthiness so that you can trust that they are able to make this point and they are an authority on the subject. So logic and credibility kind of go hand in hand, but they're not mutually exclusive. So when you have positive credibility, you'll have background, personal experience in it. You'll have research, sources, you'll have facts, you'll be unbiased, meaning you'll give both sides of the issue in addition to discussing why you feel like you're right. And you might even be educated on the topic. So someone who has 2 degrees in English may be an authority on talking about the English language to some degree. I don't know. So, negative credibility, on the other hand, shows they have a lack of experience with the topic. So they're talking about something they've never personally experienced. They're not educated on the topic. They haven't done research. They didn't go to school for this. Like, they have no knowledge of what they speak. They're overly biased, meaning they're only giving their side of the story and ignoring their opponent's position altogether, or only discrediting their opponents and not saying anything that their opponent might believe is right. And then they're hurtful to the opposition, meaning they'll attack their opposition outright by being negative towards them or saying things negative about them, which you don't want to do. You want to be professional when giving your opinion, and attacking someone is the exact opposite of that. And finally, there's emotional field, which is about the author using words to create images in the mind of their reader. So pathos can be used positively or negatively. There is positive emotional appeal where they're used to they use just enough to bring the reader into the argument. Positive emotional appeal does not mean they have happy feelings, but that they use emotional appeal well. And the negative emotional appeal alienates the reader. This could be overly negative emotions, like the ASPCA.
What's the matter? What's wrong? What's the matter? Did the commercial make you sad? Why? Huh?
Where they couple the sad song with hurt animals, and for some people that's just too much at one time. So it's about balancing the amount of heartstring tugging that you can do in an argument. So an example of a paragraph and how this looks in writing would be here. And I adapted these paragraphs from the Mississippi State University's Guide to Freshman Comp from the revised 7th edition. I have tinkered with them a little bit to make them a bit clearer and more developed, but this essentially is what came from our book. So, to begin, and I bolded the transitions because transitions are always important. Eggers uses personal experience to establish credibility with his audience. One way this topic sentence could be better is if I said whether or not it was used effectively or ineffectively. But as in a first draft, this would be acceptable. But as always, writing can always be improved. And then I go into my examples. I'm going to show how he's using personal experience to establish credibility with the audience. So my first example is how he specifically mentions how he spent most of his free time perfecting his foosball skills. And even though this is a paraphrase or a summary, I still cite it. Always cite your paraphrases, summaries, and quotations. Otherwise, it is plagiarism. But that's enough. Eggers also mentions that he volunteered a few times at a YMCA and at a home for senior citizens. Therefore, he knows what it's like to be a student and volunteer at the same time. That is where my analysis comes in. So, the highlighted portion is my citation, my quote, my evidence from the book. And then after I've given my evidence from the article, I go in and I analyze why it works or why it doesn't, what it's doing and why it's working. So therefore, he knows what it's like to be a student and volunteer at the same time. Having personal experience with the subject strengthens his credibility with the audience. So for every quote, you want to have 2 to 4 lines worth of analysis because you want to fully explain why this does or does not work. Why it's effective, what it's doing. He goes on to say, and this is example number 2, in both cases it was much too easy to quit. He talks about how he would come up with little excuses to stop going back and volunteering at some places. This is why he strongly believes colleges should implement a community service requirement. This continues to show that he has personal experience both doing community service and selecting a community service, which further strengthens his credibility on the subject. So this paragraph is missing a concluding sentence, something that would wrap up the entire paragraph rather than the individual examples. Overall, this is what analysis looks like. So you want to explain how the quote is working to create credibility or to diminish credibility, and then explain how it strengthens or weakens the overall effectiveness of the article. So also you see this with the sample pathos paragraph, which is about emotional appeal. And one thing I want to point out here is you want to explain what emotions are being brought out in the paragraph. And so here they're saying that he doesn't use any emotional appeal, and they give the example of the closest thing he has to emotional appeal. And after they give the quote, you'll see around here, though the point he makes could very possibly catch the emotional attention of the college student by telling them volunteering can help them find the career they belong in, it does not really use any deep emotional words that stand out. Use of more emotion charged words would strengthen the pathos in the article substantially and give the reader a deeper connection to what Eggers is trying to say. Alright, so if he had used emotional appeal, you'd want to use the words like this example makes the reader feel empathetic or angry, and you would explain how it does that and why it works. So don't just say it makes the reader feel something. If there is emotional appeal, you want to say what the emotions the reader may feel. You want to pinpoint what emotions the author wants the reader to feel. And then there's the logic paragraph. So again, there's the citation, and then there is the analysis. So here you see in the analysis portion, in these sentences, he logically states that since there is so much time to kill at college, community service would be a productive and great way to use time. Though it seems like a well-phrased argument, just because he had time to kill does not mean every college student has extra time on their hands. It doesn't seem like he really takes other students' circumstances into account here, just his own, which, and that's important, amounts to him generalizing an entire student population. As a result, it makes his logic a bit ineffective. So, the important part is the fact that you state what is wrong. It's state what is wrong with his logic. He's generalizing all students, saying that they all have spare time, which is illogical in and of itself because he's not taking into account multiple perspectives. And so, therefore, his reasoning is faulty. He'd want to articulate without arguing why his reasons don't match his argument. So here, the whole articulation is about him generalizing the student population rather than saying, I don't agree because I have time, or I don't, or I feel, or no, he does this, that's why this doesn't work. Or he does this, that's why this does work. That's what you're looking to do. That was a portion of this longer paragraph. And in our book, we have annotations that explain why something does or does not work. And so, if you want to, feel free to pause the video at this point to just look over this particular slide and looking at the different annotations, how they put together this paragraph. As you can see, this was not a short paragraph. You have multiple citations, multiple examples, and you always want to break down the argument. So then there's non-rhetorical analysis. There are more than this, but there are a few different ways you can do non-rhetorical analysis. One way is by analyzing style. And style is about the particular way a piece is written. It's about how they decide to put the words together on the page. Right? So every type of writing has its own style. Does the author choose to do it in like a poetry form? Does he choose to do the style as a narrative? How does the author choose to put the piece together? How is it said? Styles in writing are created deliberately by the author to convey a specific mood or effect. So, you can look at sentence length, structure, variation, position, use of sensory details, figurative language, use of sound devices, use of dialogue, word choice, tone, color, and irony. Like, inputting all of these things into your writing, not at the same time, but any of these things, constitutes your personal style of writing. And how does that work to convince your audience? Because it's all meant to draw your audience in. Then there's diction. Diction is word choice when writing. Use vocabulary suited for the type of assignment. An author's diction will create its own mood, style for that article. So an author who chooses to use a lot of slang in informal speech is speaking to a specific audience, and that may or may not work. So you're going to look, so there's formal diction. You are not angry. There's casual diction. You aren't mad. And then there's slang. You ain't ticked. Just reading these off the paper Besides the level of formality, also consider positive or negative connotation of words. So this is all about word choice. What words do they choose to use? There's positive words, negative words. Some types of diction are almost never advisable in writing. Avoid cliches, vagueness, language that has more than one equally probable meaning, wordiness, and unnecessarily complex language. Especially the last one. If you're speaking to an audience that is not highly educated on the subject, then you're going to want to avoid using technical jargon. That will alienate the audience. And so that is something you can analyze. Does the language appeal to the audience that they're talking to? Why or why not? And then there's tone. Every bit of writing has a tone. Word choice, it helps to make up the tone. Style helps to make up your tone. Imagery helps to make up your tone. Aside from individual word choice, the overall tone or attitude of a piece of writing should be appropriate for the audience or purpose. Your audience will dictate your tone. So if your audience is a group of students, like this one might be, your tone should be one that matches that audience. I'm not going to talk to my students in the same way that I'm going to talk to my friends. Your tone matters. The tone may be objective or subjective, logical or emotional, intimate or distant, serious or humorous. And that is dictated by, sentence length, word choice. So here's a sample style paragraph. So this is from Edward Feser's article, Should Felons Vote? Feel free to look that up. And as usual, I'll start with a transition word. Feser's structure, while seemingly balanced, betrays his bias and weakens his argument. So, very clear, and this is what I have to prove. Your topic sentence always states what your paragraph is going to be about. It gives background on how many states forbid felons at various stages from voting, then states that it hasn't escaped notice that that the felon vote would prove a windfall for Democrats when they do vote convicts. From ex-cons tend to pull the lever for the left. Feser continually does this balancing act throughout the article, stating the most frequently heard charge is that disenfranchising felons is racist because the felon population is disproportionately black. Then going on to say, regrettably, blacks also commit a disproportionate number of felonies as victim surveys show. Apologies for that. While this seems to give the essay balance, he never states that his opponents may be correct. Instead, he uses the structure to constantly invalidate his opponent's claims, which makes his argument overwhelmingly biased, thus weakening it. So as you can see, I have my quotation, my cite, my example. Then I have my 2 or more sentences worth of citation. Now here you could easily elaborate, but for the sake of space, I was not able to. But there's more that could be said about what he's doing here. I could explain how it's biased, why it doesn't work in greater detail, which is what you want to do with analysis. Never assume that your reader, even if it's your teacher, knows what you mean when you say this structure invalidates the opponent's claims. How does it invalidate the opponent's claims? And makes it a bias. Why is it biased? Show and tell. Here's another example, and this is with a tone paragraph. And so, to review, no matter what device you're analyzing, the goal is to look at the moving parts of the argument, not to look at the argument and agree or disagree with the content. It's all about these moving parts. logic and reasoning, the word choice, the appeals to emotion, the use of facts, personal experience, imagery, the way the essay is set up. Look at these different moving parts and then analyze the way the author is doing these things or using these concepts to convince the reader. And the question you want to ask yourself, is it successful? Right? So if it's successful, why? If it's not, why not? You have to be able to clearly explain your claim to your reader, to your audience. Because as a writer now, you have one. Right? And that's all I have for today.